for meeting. So, over the last 2 weeks, there have been quite a few different things going on. 3 primary places that our attention has been focused. The first is the 224 release that right now has a release candidate out, and I think today likely we'll have a full release published. This is a bug fix release, and there's quite a few things having been changed in this release, so I'll go through those all in a moment. The second is the focus on the Ethereum integration work, and some of the smart contract work has been open sourced this past week, so we'll talk more about that. And then the third is the continuing efforts on the multi-wallet integration for the 2.3 release upcoming. So in the 224 release that will be coming out soon, there's quite a few changes, and I'm just going to go through this list. Josh, you put together this list. Thank you for doing that. If I miss anything important that folks are working on, please jump in and let me know. So there were several changes made to the wallet. I don't know the details of all those changes. Chris could probably jump in here if that's necessary, but I know there's some changes there. Crypto listings had their version updated as well. There are also new migrations. The data is being migrated, and also, as I understand it, it also fixes a bug where previous migrations weren't working properly as well. Marking chat as read was not working properly. Chat messages weren't being properly marked. That should be fixed now. There's also a syncing issue for chains on, I think, both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and they get affected both. I don't know about Zcash. The public key formatting has been changed. There was a bug where verified moderators weren't showing up in stores correctly. That should now be fixed again. There was a race condition when saving ratings, so that should also be fixed as well. Those are primarily server changes. There's a few client changes made as well. There were tweaks made to selecting an unverified moderator in the purchase flow. Currency names now have an ISO code. Search has default suggestions and 66 results per page. And there's a tweak to how phrases are coded. So keep an eye out for that in places like search, that stores, transactions. Yeah, go ahead.
Those phrases is referring to the translations.
I see.
We had some phrases where it was a number and then the word found, which in English, it's always the word found no matter what the number is. But in other languages, you need a plural or singular form depending on what the number is.
Gotcha. So we've had some reports recently of problems with messaging and problems with syncing and payments in the wallet. And we know that some of those issues are things that are resolved in the 224, but I don't think we have, I think it's fair to say we don't have full confidence that all of those issues are yet solved. We're still seeing, at least I saw one report of someone running the release candidate that still had some messaging issues. So when you guys are using the app and testing it and whatnot, please, if you run across that stuff, especially if you figure out something that can give us some information on why it might be happening, that's very much appreciated. Was there anything on 224 specifically that I haven't touched on? Okay, I don't hear anything there. Chris Troutner asked a question. There have been some new hires and a lot of changes. Let me get a brief rundown of the org chart. So who's overseeing what subcomponents? It's a good question, Chris. I'm going to talk through the Ethereum integration work in multi-wallet briefly, and then we can come back to that, because that might help answer that a little bit, because there's some folks here that are working on those things as well. So the next part of what we've been working for is Ethereum integration, and there's multiple parts of that. One is just getting Ethereum used as a currency within the application itself, and I believe that's pretty far underway, but I'm not actually sure that the current status of that. How much more work needs to be done for Ethereum to be usable in the application as a payment?
So this is Mike. I'm one of the backend developers who's been working with Ashwin, who's been leading our Ethereum integration. And I'll try to characterize that a little bit. I believe that we'll have Ethereum integration delivered after our API wallet has been integrated into the backend. I know that there is work already being done to make that happen, but I don't think that it's going to be delivered with the API, and will certainly be done afterwards, and that's all I think we can commit to at this point.
Okay, so that's a post 2.3 feature.
Well, it probably depends on how well it's working, because I mean, Ashwin's working on it in parallel, and we're hoping to make it just portable so that we can just kind of slot it in there. And if by the time we get the 2.3 out with the multi-currency in there, if it's ready, it'll probably be in there. It just depends on how it's working at that point.
Okay, so the best way to summarize is, as you said, work is going in parallel along with the multi-wallet. So we'll see where it gets as that work continues. But it's not imminent, but it's coming. And then, excuse me. And then there are also other smart contract work. Other smart contract work being done at the same time, which isn't just about Ethereum integrations for payments. There are some other capabilities that it should give us as well. And I'm not personally as up to date on those efforts. I do know that a repository was open sourced this week, and I'm actually going to put that into chat right now. So in the public chat, there's a link there to the smart contract repository. And anyone who has more knowledge of those efforts and can explain what's in that repository, feel free to do so.
Yeah, hi guys, Samir this side. So basically we worked on smart contracts, and currently our repository contains 2 smart contracts. The first one is the escrow smart contract. So this escrow smart contract will enable payment protection payments in terms of Ethereum, right? So quite similarly what we have in Bitcoin, right? And another one is contract manager smart contract, wherein we'll be able to manage different versions of Ethereum other smart contracts, including the escrow stuff. So right now we are still in the development phase. Most of the work is being done, right? The repository is open source, and we request you guys to have a look at it and give us your reviews and comments. So yeah, so that's what we have currently in our smart contracts.
All right, thank you, Samir. Chris asks he'd like to hear some details or preview of the API wallet versus Ethereum, the technical difficulties, gotchas, etc. And other than the OpenBazaar token, what are the goals of the Ethereum wallet? One downside of having the dev meeting when we do is that Washington's not able to join us, which is unfortunate because of the time difference in Australia right now. And this has been something he's been focusing on very strongly, and I would strongly recommend that you talk to him and try to get his vision for where this is going. But anyone else who is working on this, if you have thoughts on Chris's question, please jump in.
Well, the challenges primarily were just that the interface was designed mostly for, well, it was designed exclusively for Bitcoin initially, but it can work with other Bitcoin-like coins. But Ethereum, it's an account-based system, not a UTXO-based system. So you have, you have a hard time. It's like square peg, round hole type deal, and to make it work with Ethereum, I think we're end up kind of using an Ethereum contract that kind of somewhat, to some extent, mimics the similar type of multi-sig functionality as you see in Bitcoin, but a little bit differently. There's also some other issues that we haven't fully addressed yet, where like right now, if you're, let's say, closing out an order, like someone leaves a review, he sends a signature. This is a multi-sig. He sends a signature from the buyer over to the seller. Right now, the seller just puts his signature on it and then broadcasts a transaction and releases the funds. But with Ethereum, you need to have money in your wallet in order to do that, right? That's kind of fundamentally different than Bitcoin, where you can receive money without having money. You can't in Ethereum. You have to have money in order to receive money. So there's create some like UX challenges that we're going to have to deal with too, that are still a little bit unaddressed there. That answers it.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. Thank you. It's kind of, you just nailed exactly kind of the round hole square peg thing. Like, I'm stoked that you guys are pursuing both, but yeah, I definitely see some sort of infrastructure incompatibilities. I'm just curious how you guys are going to overcome them. And it sounds like it's a work in progress. I mean, I knew that. No, that's great. I'm definitely paying attention. I'm stoked you guys open sourced this, because I'm about to dive into the Truffle framework as well for an ERC20 token for P2P VPS. So I'm definitely going to be following along as this develops. And I am actually in touch with Dr. Washington about a few things around this stuff. So,
gotcha. Good deal. So Gustavo asked a question as well, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. But I'd like to finish up what has been going on in the past couple of weeks, discussing the multi-wallet work. There are two notes that I have. One is that the wallet interface, which I believe is on the server side branch that it's being built into, is now using coin agnostic addresses, which I think is what Chris was touching on, that originally it was just Bitcoin type addresses, and now those are agnostic. And then also that the server API migration for multi-wallet work has started as well. Is there anything else on the multi-wallet work that should be addressed?
Yeah, other than we have like probably about 3 or 4 PRs that are out there with code in them that just kind of need to be reviewed and merged and rebased and that sort of stuff. And once that's in there, there's not a whole lot left, but the remainder is to just like tear apart the code base and put it back together again, essentially. But it shouldn't be that difficult.
Right, and obviously this will be a major release, 2.3, and it's going to need a lot more testing than some of these minor releases. So highly encourage anyone out there, as soon as the 2.3 release candidate drops, to test it as much as you possibly can. All right. Those are the things that I had noted over the past couple of weeks that we've been working on. Anyone from our team that has anything that I've missed, please speak up. All right, so let's get to some of the questions. Gustavo asked if there's any projects out there for integration between OpenBazaar and other traditional platforms. And there have been a couple sort of ad hoc attempts in the past to do that. I know Brian put together an importer tool that worked from, I believe, Etsy There may have been a few other attempts here and there, but there has not been a sort of overall project or focus on creating tools to integrate between those platforms. It's been something we talked about a lot for a long time, but it's not a big focus, and we would love to have someone from the community help us with that.
One thing that that always came up for me when I was working on this tool, and I've done a couple iterations of this thing, is that there's really no, like, the ideal tool would be like you could go to the app and import the listings and then like have it like pretty seamless to go into your desktop app or whatever. And I would ideally even like to do it if there was like some kind of web app that you could do. But, you know, obviously there's like issues with the communication between like a web app and a local application or whatever. And I don't know if Chris, not Chris Troutner, but Chris Crispy, and the guys on the back end team, if you guys have any thoughts on like ways we could make that better. But, you know, I think until you can make it like dummy proof for people to like slurp in results from everywhere else without having to go and try and find their, you know, the cookie and, you know, all that stuff that they need in order to like reach out to the API and download an app and do all that. I think it's going to not be super useful. I guess it would be for power users, but, you know, I mean, I think that would be where it really gets to be an interesting tool. And I was actually, I think Chris Troutner, I think you did tweet or something about, you know, eBay kicking people off, or someone did, and suggested that, you know, it'd be cool to be able to do that. And I think, you know, having like some kind of like quick app where, you know, you could just paste in an eBay store and like have it suck down a listing and show people like what it would look like if they put it on OpenBazaar would be pretty cool, for people to visualize what their store would look like. And I was thinking about playing with that maybe on a weekend sometime when I had some extra time.
If I may, been working with some of these e-commerce platforms. Thanks for the insights in this. I can see that your API is all published, and that's very nice. And the only part that I didn't quite see is the fulfillment part. So if the order is placed, I'll need some kind of callback for the fulfillment to continue within the platform. But you do have all the API there for product listing and so on. So one could just export the products using your API. That's in there. So I think you're very close to something that can be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think like was just being alluded to is that it's just a matter of priorities at this point. But, you know, if anybody was interested in doing that, that's something that we really would love to have help with, and would definitely support any efforts in that area.
Good to know. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as always, you know, if you want to further pursue that, our Slack community is a great way to pitch those sorts of things and get in contact with us further. So if you're not already in Slack, you know, please do so. There's some other comments. Chris mentioned that on the topic of APIs, he's linking to his Node.js library. Yeah, so Chris Troutner has created a Node.js library to interface with the OpenBazaar API, which is really neat. So there's a link there in chat to check that out if that's helpful to anyone listening. I'll go back to an earlier question that Chris had, which is about some of the sort of new hires and changes within the OB1 team. And I know from the outside, it probably looks a little confusing to see different names and people doing different things. But the team hasn't really fundamentally changed. But we have some new folks who've come on, and they may have been on actually for a while, but maybe you're just now seeing them more in public because the Ethereum work has started becoming more public. But there's a couple of people now on the call, Ashwin and Samip, who both are working on the Ethereum integration side. And as I mentioned earlier, that really has sort of ownership or Washington. So if you have questions on those efforts, definitely reach trying to contact him. There's also another team member, Austin, who is working on that side as well. So there's been a lot of focus and resources going into that, making sure that's done, correctly and in a timely manner. And I don't remember if there are other particular staff changes recently, but as folks know who have been sort of watching this or familiar with OpenBazaar development in the past, Chris Basia is the lead backend developer on the server side, and Mike G on this call, Tyler Smith are assist and work on the backend as well as infrastructure. And then Josh, also on this call, leads up the front end development work, and there are several other developers that assist there as well. That's a general overview of the OB1 team right now from the development standpoint. Are there any other questions, either in chat or folks can speak up, or comments about projects you're working on or things that you've run into on OpenBazaar recently?
This is Chris Trotner. I'll just mention here that I have been playing around with the 2.2.3 release, and in particular the 0.12.3 RC2 candidate. And I haven't found any issues. In fact, I don't know. Maybe this is just coincidental. I never know when changes happen. But I was really struggling with syncing my server to the Bitcoin Cash network. Seemed like only like 1 out of every 3 tries was working, but I haven't had an issue with it yet. Every time it seems to sync. So I don't know if that's luck or changes. But yeah, just out there testing. Haven't seen anything.
That was right. I mean, you were so here was the issue. Why? I mean, you were right that it was dropping out, syncing, but like, the issue was it turned out if you were syncing and a new block came in off the network while you were syncing, then it barked or it like stopped. So part of the reason why you wouldn't see that unless it took like longer than 10 minutes to sync, or like a block came in really quickly, so like you could easily sync it and to the tip and then not notice, which is why it seemed very sporadic.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was noticing all these other knock-on effects, like orders just not showing up. Like I could complete a full transaction as a buyer, and the seller wouldn't see anything because, and it ultimately came down to syncing to the BCH network. Once it synced, the orders came through, but the seller didn't have any visibility as to like actual orders until the network synced. So it was like, so all these knock-on effects happened.
Yeah, that was a hard one to figure out. I only figured it out because I was syncing really old nodes that took a while to get to the tip, and I noticed they kept stalling, and so it took about a day to like debug that, really. But
right on. Good work, Chris.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we finish this call?
Doesn't sound like it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Appreciate your time. As always, if you have any other ways you'd like to contribute or thoughts, feedback, please set us up in Slack, and we will hope to see you all in a couple weeks from now. Everyone have a good day.